Hello, my name is Kristen Leathers-Grattan. I'm a board member of Overland Park Chamber as well as a member of the Public Policy Committee. Today we're meeting with the Ward 3 candidates. Welcome to the audience as well for being here. Thank you Johnson County Public Policy Council for coordinating today's forum for the Overland Park City Council Ward 3. The Public Policy Council is a collaborative effort of the 10 chambers and chambers of commerce that represent more than 5,000 Johnson County businesses. In addition to hosting forums such as this, the Public Policy Committee, or Council, conducts other voter education efforts, including publishing a wealth of candidate information on the Council's website, www.votejoco.com. Welcome our candidates for their introductions. Candidate 1 is Amy Scrivner, and candidate 2 is Tom Carignan. Today's format, each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. After the opening comments, we will rotate through questions written by the Public Policy Council, getting through as many questions as time allows. We will not be taking questions from the audience today. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. Because this is a forum and not a debate, we have not built in time for rebuttal. At the conclusion of our Q&A period, we will give each candidate 2 minutes for closing remarks. Prior to the forum, we drew a number to determine who would speak first. Based on that random drawing, we will begin with Tom Carignan and his opening statement.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you to the Overland Park Chamber and the Vote Joco Committee. My name is Tom Carignan, and I'm running for Overland Park City Council right here in Ward 3. Ward 3 is a special area in Overland Park. As I like to say and kid other folks, that it's the beating heart of Overland Park. Ward 3 is the hub of our hospitality, our medical, our educational, and commercial sectors within our city. My journey as a resident at Overland Park started 18 years ago when my wife and I chose Overland Park to buy our home and raise a family. My membership in the Overland Park Chamber started just before that in 2006, and my involvement in the city and chamber and civic community began about the same time. I believe I'm the proven and experienced leader who can best represent our ward and our city. I did serve 1 term on the Overland Park City Council from 19 to 23, and it started at a challenging time. COVID happened right after 2020, and civil unrest was going on across the country. Working together with fellow council members, I'm proud to say that our city navigated the financial and the health risks during that time, and our public safety built stronger and deeper relationships with our communities and worked to deliver safe and unbiased policing. Continuing on public safety, I'm proud to have worked to help create the Overland Park Crisis Action Team, integrating mental health and trauma-informed care during our calls for service. I know I have family that certainly could have benefited from those services had they been available in the past. During my first term, we also recruited and hired a city manager, which is the key executive position in the city. I did chair the Finance, Administration, and Economic Development Committee, working along with staff, fellow council members, the development community, businesses, and residents, working to build development in a responsible manner. And lastly, I'm proud to say that I have worked on and built strong quality of life amenities like Strang Park, our first adaptive playground in the city, the Longhouse at the Arboretum, and approved additional expenditures to enhance our infrastructure that will benefit generations to come. Thank you.
We will now call on Amy Scrivner to make her opening statement.
Great, thank you. Amy Scrivner, running for Ward 3, Overland Park City Council. I want to thank everyone involved in making this forum happen, and I want to thank Tom for your service from 2019 to 2023 on council. I know it was a lot of work at a difficult time, so thank you for that. You know, I am not unlike a lot of young Kansans. Well, back 20, 30 years ago when I graduated high school, I was one of those young Kansans who decided to get the heck out of Kansas, and I swore I would never come back. And never say never. As 2016 comes around and my mother dies unexpectedly, and it becomes painfully clear that my father is unable to take care of himself. So after being 25 years away from Johnson County, I came back with my husband. I had lived in rural New Mexico for a while and then Cincinnati, Ohio. And in that time, I forged now a 30-year career in the nonprofit sector. I have worked in workforce development. I have worked with veterans and people with disabilities, people who are blind or have low vision. And I've done a variety of things, including fundraising and community relations, government relations as well. That experience greatly influences my decision to run. Me coming back in 2016, I've had to take away the car keys from my father. I've had to watch him really struggle to age in place. And for me, it's unacceptable that someone living in one of the wealthiest counties and one of the best cities is unable to age in place with dignity and independence. And those are a lot of the reasons why I'm running.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the candidates. As a candidate, what are your top 3 policy issues? Amy, start with you.
My top 3 issues are housing, transportation, and land use. I believe we need developers who are willing to meet our community's housing needs. Where are the housing options for older residents who are wanting to move into a smaller footprint home to downsize? And where's the housing for the folks who are just starting out and starting their families and careers? And from a personal perspective, watching my father struggle with that, there are a lot of folks that I've talked to who are retirees as I've knocked on the doors, and they're in a similar situation. I also think that transportation is an issue that we need to tackle. Taking away the car keys from my father should not have stripped him of his independence. And I think that's that's one of the most un-American things you can do is strip someone of their independence and choices. So I would like to see a transportation system that focuses and prioritizes on moving people, not just cars. And finally, land use and zoning, which I will admit is not the most stimulating reading and research that I've done in my time. But I realize how critically important our land use decisions are. Is what we do, what we decide in that arena dictates what we can, cannot do, or won't do around housing and transportation. So those are my 3 issues.
Tom?
Thank you. First, the thing that I think is critically important is to maintain and enhance our strong, safe neighborhoods in Overland Park, which includes additional housing options. Similarly to what Amy had just said, as I've been knocking on doors around the ward, I'm hearing several things. Where are the options for the person in the apartment who may want a home? Where are the options for someone who may have a large home and their children are gone and they need a townhome or a condo or some other type of place to live so they can live near to their family or near to the communities to which they belong? And I'm excited about this topic because I've also been out talking to several builders, the home builders, and are there ways that we can partner as a city to collaborate with builders, the county, utilities, and other folks that are in that home building and housing ecosystem to make housing more diverse, so housing stock more diverse and ideally more attainable. Second, thoughtful and responsible development. As we all know, at Overland Park, we're running out of green space and greenfield out to the south. So as we look to the future, more of our projects will be infill and redevelopment. So we really have to approach those with care and collaboratively with our neighbors, with our builders, our developers, and all of our partners to make sure that we're building and developing in a way that benefits most of our residents if possible. And lastly, another thing that I'm sure you're hearing too at the door, Amy, is really trying to make sure that we balance and maximize the tax dollars that we're given to spend on behalf of our community. So how do we not only become more efficient, but really look at our budget and make sure that we're balancing our tax burden while still delivering best-in-class services that our residents are accustomed to and deserve.
What are your views on the services and value the city citizens receive for their local tax dollars? Tom, we'll start with you.
I do think residents receive a very high value for the taxes that we pay. When I talk to residents, taxes is a very common topic, and what I try to remind residents and what I believe is that the portion that we pay to the city is just a portion of our overall tax burden. In Overland Park, we like to talk about our lowest in the really region and probably several states city tax mill levy, which is just over 14 mills. So on an average basis, you're really only paying $1 or $2 a day, maybe $3 a day on average for our roads, our bridges, our parks, our police, our fire, and all of those types of services. If you look at our budget, it's roughly about 1/3 property tax, 1/3 sales tax, and 1/3 fees and other intergovernmental transfers. And so I believe that by maintaining the balances of sources and refining how we use those tax dollars, we'll continue to deliver that high value for our residents.
Okay, Amy.
Sure. I think most anyone who has lived in other cities, like I have in other states, when they come to Overland Park, they realize that there is huge value in terms of what we get from services and maintenance and care of the city compared to what our local tax dollars, what we pay into. And we have the second lowest tax rate in the state of Kansas, and that's something on council that I very much want to maintain to ensure that, that we remain in the lower tax bracket compared to other cities in the state. Do I think everyone's happy with those services and value? I'm sure in knocking doors you have also heard I thought you were going to say the tax discussions were a hot button issue. You know, there are some folks who are not happy with the services, and digging a little deeper, I think some of it is not understanding completely how this tax system works. So I think, you know, as a communications person, I think doing a better job in talking about that value that taxes paid in brings to us. I also am really excited to see the rebate program, the property tax rebate program that council put into place. And I would love to see that, and would love the opportunity to work on broadening the eligibility requirements to help alleviate some of the property tax burdens, especially for our seniors and retirees and folks who are on a fixed income.
Next question. What changes, if any, would you like to see to the city budget? Amy?
Yes. So for me, the city budget, I think many people think it's a very boring and tedious and confusing process. I think community input is really important, but we've not done, in my opinion, the best job of that. It really consists of an online form and then a public meeting after the draft of the budget. I've been very interested in watching some of the models around participatory budget processes in places like Durham, North Carolina, and Nashville, Tennessee, where a certain percentage of the budget is dedicated to community-driven, community-chosen projects. And community members participate in the budget process and have direct say in what that percentage of that budget goes in terms of investments in neighborhoods. And again, I think it's important to communicate not just about the current budget process, but also of reporting on the performance of the previous year. I would love to see a report card or a dashboard that's very easily accessible and readable and understandable to report on the investments and the decisions made in the previous budget cycle, and really spend a bit more time with community members having those conversations. When elected to council, I would love to sit down and have regular meetings with residents to help demystify the budget process, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and confusion around. It's an intimidating process, and it shouldn't be.
Tom?
When you look at an existing budget, it's really hard to go in and pick and choose and say, I don't think this is right, or I think we shouldn't do this, because once something starts, people start to rely on those services, or the departments within the city rely on whatever service or product they're needing. That's not to say that the city is not exempt from inflation and other types of things that raise our costs. And if you look at the budget, the vast majority of what our city does really is what I like to think of as keeping the lights on spend. So things that have existed for many years that we have to buy new fire trucks, we have to buy new cars, we have to repave roads, we have to improve our fire stations. And so we're spending more each year, but a lot of it's for reoccurring or existing expenses. So what I did when I was on council is I asked our city manager to do the best and identify what in the budget is net new spend. So what are those dollars that did not exist in prior years? And are there any areas, and I'm sure, city staff, I know they work hard, and I know that sometimes, I leaned on them, and I'm sure the council members lean on them to really sharpen the pencil. But I think there probably are some areas, especially in those new categories of spend, where we can reevaluate and say, okay, is this something we need today, or is it something we might need tomorrow or in 5 years? To really just make sure to go back to that original point of balancing the tax burden to the spend at the city.
What role, if any, do you believe the city should play in economic development to bring jobs and capital investment to the community? Tom, we'll start with you.
So I do think the city should play a role, as should the Chamber and the Economic Development Corporation that we have here in Overland Park. Well, we want to look at the types of projects that add value to our city, that bring jobs to our city, that can enhance resident experience by maybe building green space or public parking or fixing thoroughfares and things that our residents use. Those projects are, and I will say the caveat, not every project's a good project. Not every deal is a good deal. So everything should be reviewed and analyzed individually and on a as needed and case-by-case basis. But I think if you look at the areas of the city, if you look at 95th and Antioch, that area especially on the east side that really was starting to become run down and dilapidated, those investments that we made have really, the grocery store and the different retail spaces there have really added to those communities and actually, or that community, and actually enhanced property values because that entire shopping district has improved. If you look at a lot of the things that we've done, I think they've been additive to our city, and they brought in tax dollars and sales tax dollars and residents that do benefit us in the long run.
Amy.
I do believe that the city should play a leading role in economic development and job creation and attracting capital investments. But the city has the added responsibility of ensuring that these activities do more good than harm and bring more benefits than not. And I believe that major development projects must prioritize hiring local workers from the start. That keeps more of the money in the community, and it helps the working families who want to work and live in Overland Park. I'd also like to see a more strategic use of demographic trends to inform economic development. If you consider that in the next 10 years in the US, there will be more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 18. And that's the first time that's happened in our demographic history in the US. How are those demographic trends informing economic decisions? I haven't heard a lot of that discussion at the council level, and I'm really curious because I'm afraid that we are sometimes too enamored with the immediate project at hand and not necessarily looking at the impact over the next 10 years, especially with those major demographic shifts. And I think that's something that we need to talk more about when it comes to economic development projects and job creation.
As the city considers future development and redevelopment projects, describe your views on how the city should best manage and balance growth. We'll start with you, Amy.
Sure. There's a lot of growth and new development in the southern part of Overland Park. My concern is that it may be at the expense of maintaining and investing in the older parts of Overland Park. And I think it's inherently human and maybe uniquely American that we are always about the new sparkly thing, the new idea, the new innovation, the new big project. And unfortunately, it's often at the expense of maintaining what we already have. And I think that is something that, as we consider the future of development and redevelopment projects, we really need to pay attention to. And I think more focus on addressing mixed use and how to create those missing housing options that both Tom and I have talked about and feel strongly about. And it's going to be a constant balancing act. I will say too, going back to demographics, are we preparing for what's called the silver tsunami of folks who are retiring and want to stay in the community? How are we balancing the need for housing options and those economic redevelopment and development decisions? It breaks my heart to think that as I talk to some of the folks at the doors, they say, well, I've lived here for 40 years, but I don't think I can stay here in retirement. And that's, for me, is not a good sign. A city should be able to support folks at every phase of life and at every age.
Tom?
Can you say the question again, Kristen?
Yes, I'm
Sorry.
happy to. As the city considers future development and redevelopment projects, describe your views on how the city should best manage and balance growth.
Sure. As I mentioned before, we're running out of greenfield in the south, so more and more of our projects are going to be infill and redevelopment. And that means there are neighbors in those neighborhoods or those areas of the city. Taking a step back, Framework OP has given us a directional template or thought process for land use for the future. So I think the city and a lot of people in this room and when I was on council did a lot of work inputting ideas into that plan to try to give us an idea of what we're looking at in the future. What I do think is that we need to be more collaborative with our residents when possible. Sometimes I'm driving, there's a proposed rezoning at College and Flum, which is just down the road from my house, and I missed the little yellow card that announces the rezoning. So I've been thinking about, are there ways to maybe communicate that a little better to make sure folks understand what's going on? Because things are going to change, and our city's going to continue to evolve. But I think the better that we work with our developers, our residents, and really everybody that's in the process, I think when those ideas come together, better things happen.
What is your philosophy on the role the city should play in terms of metro area issues? Tom?
Overland Park is a leader in our county. It is a leader across the state line when you look at our involvement and the folks that are involved with MARC, the Mid-America Regional Council. It's also a leader in the state. We're the second largest city in the state, just behind Wichita. Our tax base is one of the strongest in the state. So I think it really behooves us to maintain our involvement in local, regional, and national organizations to not only teach others, but to learn from others, to try to do things better and continue to lead those conversations. We're blessed to have that strong tax base, and so it's great to be able to learn from other cities on what they're doing, what are things that we can add potentially or enhance, and also, hey, where are things that we need to get better at. And so I think that the current city manager and council are doing a good job at that, and I certainly would be a part of that going into the future.
Amy?
I think Overland Park has, it has its own distinct identity, especially as a first-class city in the region, but we are also a part of the bi-state region, and we don't operate in a vacuum. So many of us, we live here or work across state line. We attract, because of a hub of retail and science and medical facilities, there are lots of folks coming back and forth, and there are times, I remember moving here and back here in 2016, kind of forgetting, like, is this Overland Park? Is this Lenexa? We are connected, and we need to maintain those connections. Overland Park has definitely a role to play in making sure that metro area issues are addressed in a way that benefits our residents, and I feel that a very vibrant region will only benefit the residents of Overland Park. And I think we should do that.
Do you believe the city is headed in the right direction? Amy, we'll start with you.
I have to admit that I hate this question. I hate this question because it oversimplifies the complexities of our lives. So I think it depends. I think it depends on who you ask and what phase of life they're in. For me, a strong and vibrant city should offer security and stability to its residents at every stage of their lives. So if you ask a mid-career professional and a two-earner in household here who's doing really well in business, they're probably going to say, you know, taxes could be lower, I could pay less on property taxes, but in general, things are going in the right direction. You talk to someone, a person like my dad, in his situation where now they're on a fixed income and they're struggling to stay in their home because they can't navigate the stairs, maintenance is getting too much, they're on a fixed income, they may have a different answer. So it depends. It really does depend. And I'll go back and refer to the demographics again. Are we headed in the right direction? Are we headed in the right direction in planning for those major shifts in demographics? I'm not convinced that we are.
Tom?
It is complex, and I appreciate you pointing that out. At the high level, I do think we're headed in the right direction. You know, I come from a town in central Kansas that had its heyday probably 100, well, I guess I'm 50, so maybe 50 years ago was its heyday, and it exists, and it lives or dies by the next industrial project or the next one or two things. You know, we're really blessed in Overland Park to still be in competition for job-creating projects and developments that add value to our city. If we think about what's happening here on this college corridor we've talked about for at least the decade that I've been talking about it, we're seeing things happen. We just saw that Corporate Woods is going to change hands and going to have hopefully some exciting things coming along there. We've seen some plans down the road for the Lighton Plaza area. We're talking about City Hall, we're talking about Black and Beach and other projects that add value and keep the city moving forward. And we're still at the place where we're benefiting from those projects and we're able to provide services and able to do the things that we want to do without overburdening our residents on the tax side. So I do think in that general direction we are going the right way.
What do you believe makes you uniquely qualified to serve in this position and most distinguishes you from your opponent? Tom, I'll let you start.
I mean, as I alluded to in my opening comments, you know, I'm a proven, experienced leader for a short time on council, but really for my entire life. I kind of joked that I was voluntold at about 10 to be an altar boy and to clean the pews and all that stuff, whether I wanted to or not. So the slogan and motto of my fraternity was "Give, expecting nothing thereof." So that's been a part of who I am for a very long time. My career's been in banking and financial services, so I really appreciated that background with my work on the Finance and Administration Committee. Most of those development agreements are really, speaking of boring things to read, really dry to read, but it is important to understand and understand how financing works and those things. I've been a part of a city council that got through some tough times and some tough things and come on the other side. And you know, as I'll mention it in my closing, but you know, my life is here, my wife and my family are here, and so all of those things together really, I believe, make me the stronger candidate. You know, I've really enjoyed getting to know Amy, and so I don't think there's...
We're going to be friends.
We're going to be friends.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that really jumps out as a glaring issue, but you know, I just rest on that experience and that proven track record.
Amy?
Thank you. You know, 30 years in nonprofit, and I joke, I started when I was 12. 30 years in nonprofit work. I have, it's not a luxurious life. We don't have large budgets. I understand the constraints of working within very tight budgets and having to often make very difficult decisions about what gets funded and what doesn't. I joke, I've done a lot of government relations. I've worked with a lot of elected officials in tackling some really complex social issues and problems in communities. And sometimes it's been to great success, and sometimes it's been with a lot of frustration. And I firmly believe, and I figuratively say that I've yelled at a lot of elected officials, and it's my turn to sit on the other side of the desk. And I firmly believe that everyone should run at least once for office or in some capacity. But I believe that my qualifications in the nonprofit work, when you do nonprofit work, when you work with folks with such vastly different backgrounds than yourself, you are forever changed, and you are empathetic, and you understand the complexities of everyday life. And I think it just gives me a broader perspective outside of my own personal experience. But building on my personal experience, watching my dad these 9 years and moving back has been tough. If you've ever taken away the car keys from a loved one, it is the worst thing that you can do to another human being. And for me, my dad is a huge reason why I'm running, and it keeps me motivated. He's in hospice care now, and when he's gone, I'm going to need to put this energy into something, and I really want to continue helping people to make the best life that they can at every phase of their lives here in Overland Park. I don't want them to leave because they think they can't make it here anymore.
Well, thank you, candidates, for sharing your thoughts on these important issues we've covered. We will now turn to closing comments. Remind you each that you have 2 minutes for your closing statements, and so invite Amy to start. We'll start with you.
I just want to reiterate, and this is the first time I've run for office, and again, I think everyone should take that chance. Everyone needs to get involved at some point in their lives in local government. For me, local government is really one of the most important decision-making bodies in all of our government systems. I can't control what's happening at the federal level, but I can absolutely have a leading role in what's happening in the local community, and I want that opportunity. And again, calling on my 30 years of nonprofit work, I wouldn't stick with it for 30 years in helping to tackle some serious issues if I didn't have a personal investment in making that happen. And if I could take that experience and my dad kind of sitting on my shoulder into this role, I absolutely want the chance to do that. I'm pretty honest, and I'm at a phase of life where my filter has some holes in it, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm approachable, I'm very honest, and I want to do the work, and I want to do the work with the residents of Overland Park. So I appreciate the opportunity to run, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve.
Tom?
Thanks, Kristen, and thanks to the Chamber and JOCO for organizing this forum. I think in this era of polarization in our politics, I think we've proven we can still have good civil conversations and discourse here in Overland Park, at least. In this past half hour or 45 minutes, we've covered critical issues facing the city, and my commitment remains unwavering. I believe that our thriving community is built on strong neighborhoods, robust public safety, meaningful quality of life amenities, and as boring as it sounds, investment in infrastructure. Those are the things that make a city a city. And I also think of the city as, in technology, they talk about a platform for things or something as a service. I mean, the city really is a platform for people to thrive and people to, I hope, live in peace in the sense of they feel good where they are, they feel welcomed, and they feel a part of their community. And my commitment to the city and to the residents of Ward 3 is to continue working towards that. As I said a minute ago, my wife, my kids, my life is here, and I really want to ensure the city remains a place where everyone can prosper. And this November, I ask for the votes of the folks out there, and I appreciate the time today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy Scrivner and Tom Carignan for participating in the Ward 3 forum today, and the willingness to serve the people of Johnson County. Remind the audience that the recording today's forum, along with the other election-related information, will be available on www.votejoco.com. And the advanced voting in person begins on Saturday, October 25th, and Election Day is Tuesday, November 4th. And with that, we thank everybody for participating today.